Now, this next story is right up my alley. You know, what's behind me. I've talked about it. Florida State missing the playoff, Florida State getting screwed, but not only Florida State, to some degree, Georgia has a lesser argument, but an argument. If you want to go off of quality losses, because throughout this whole college football playoff ride and journey, the SEC has always talked about good losses. And you got this team, Ohio State, out here whose only loss is to the number one team at their place by 6 points. I'm not saying Ohio State deserves to be in. I'm just saying, but we got, let's see, Senator Colton C. Moore from the state of Georgia. He's come out here with this memorandum with the state of Georgia seal on it and everything, saying we want in. Let the Orange Bowl be a part of the college football playoff. Some things in this letter that he wrote, until the SEC championship, the University of Georgia Bulldogs won 29 straight games, the longest winning streak in the NCAA in 20 years. Under Coach Kirby Smart, they are the defending back-to-back national champions. Now, you already heard me talk about that. You don't get to use last year for this year. The Kansas City Chiefs, for example, 8-5 right now. They don't get to say we're the Super Bowl champs, so therefore we get home field advantage or, something along those lines. So sorry, Georgia, you lose that argument. But also he goes on to say, we are also Georgia is statistically in the top 4 most efficient programs in the country and is top 4 strongest in football power index rated teams in the country. And of course, that's ESPN stat. So now with that being said, I like it. 2 weeks ago, I said, you know what, Florida State, even though you're my team, we knew what the system was. We knew the system was a sham. But you know what? Y'all agreed to this system. Every team in the nation agreed to this system. Therefore, you deal with the positives and the negatives from it. But now that I look at it, this is the first time that we've had this issue in the playoffs. Now, you've been able to argue over sometimes should Alabama had got in this year? Should Ohio State had got in that year? But, obviously they were in range 11-1, 12-1, something along those lines. So therefore they got it. This year, this is the first time, we got 3 undefeated Power 5 teams, Florida State, Washington, Michigan. You got Texas, Alabama, and Ohio State all with one loss along with Georgia. So we've never had this many teams eligible eligible, you know what I mean, that you could make an argument for based on record at least. Now, with that being said, why not? Next year, we're going to a 12-team playoff anyway. Now, a lot of people have said, we don't want to see Florida State get blown out. We don't think Florida State could beat any of the teams that's in the college football playoff. And you know what? You could, operative word, could be right. How many of y'all took 24.5-point dog Chicago State over Northwestern last night? How many of y'all won money on that? And how many of y'all took the money line? Right? How many of y'all had Penn beating Villanova a few weeks ago? And St. Joe's? How many of y'all had Cincinnati going into South Bend a few years ago to win that game to get to the playoff? How many of you had Cardell Jones winning in 2014 against Alabama? So on and so forth. This is why we play the games. So with that being said, it ain't just Florida State and Georgia. You can add the Orange Bowl. That's your 5 and 6 seed. Then you got 7 and 8 over here. You could have Ohio State and Missouri. Sorry, Oregon. You lost to Washington twice. Sorry. So in my perfect world, I've always wanted an 8-team playoff. I think 12's too many. Not because teams don't deserve it, But the argument is every week of the regular season matters. How? How? Now, for those of you that may have problems and say, well, Ohio State, Michigan loses its relevance if they play this week and then they play again in the play. No, 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 it doesn't work like that. You just give them higher stakes to aim for. Now, obviously, I know that this is not going to happen, that they're not going to let this Orange Bowl be a part of the playoff. But why not? You know, college football does everything ass backwards. We used to have bowl games where the highest rated teams didn't even play each other because of conference tie-ins. So you had just as late as 2003, you had Michigan and USC playing in the Rose Bowl. You had LSU and Oklahoma playing in the Sugar Bowl. Home game for LSU, by the way. Home game for USC, by the way. Split national champions. So if we're going to do things ass backwards anyway, why wouldn't the college football playoff be able to be a rolling requirement? We'll take as many teams as should be in. 4 right now, going to 12 next year. 8 has always been perfect to me. 5 conference champions, 3 at large, even though one of those is probably so like this year, for example, you would have had the same 4 teams that you got in the playoff. You would have had Florida State as the ACC champion. So that's your 5 Power 5. That's your Power 5 champions right there. You got Texas, Georgia, Ohio State is your at large. Perfect playoff, right? Why we got to think of this? Why the people getting paid millions of dollars can't make this shit up? I don't know.